Being on the bench yesterday afternoon, I called my wife to ask for her Hotmail password because I was downloading a trial software product and needed to register it. She gave me the password after asking why I needed it, and I went into her email to click the link on the confirmation email. I didn't see the email immediately. I later found it in the junk folder. If you were wondering, so I started poking around. I really don't know why. To make a long story short, I wound up in her sent folder and discovered a bunch of dirty emails between her and a guy I had never heard of. I found out later she had known him in high school. She's 37 now. The emails were dated between November of last year and January of this year. They included pictures of his stuff, references to phone conversations they had. He apparently lives about 40 minutes from here. In shock, I read and reread each email. My wife was at work and wasn't coming home for several hours, so I just wandered around the house after the kids. We have 4 daughters. The oldest, being 5, went to bed. When she finally came home, I told her we needed to have a big boy, big girl conversation. She looked annoyed and asked what was going on. I started by asking her if we were still married because she loved me or was it only because of our kids. She seemed completely surprised by the question and asked what this was all about. I stated that I knew all about John, made-up name. I said I had seen the emails, the texts, the pictures, and that I knew about all the phone calls. My wife seemed floored, kind of like a deer in the headlights look. She responded finally that she did love me and that kids or not, she did want to stay married. I went on, saying that I wasn't looking for a fight or to make her feel bad. This wasn't something I wanted to hold over her head forever. Whatever we needed to do to fix the marriage, I was all in. I just needed to know if that was what she wanted. As our conversation went on, she seemed to say all the right things. She apologized multiple times and told me that there had never been any physical contact between them. I want to believe her. We'll see. The emails seemed to indicate it was all via phone and computer. I told her to be straight up brutally honest with me and to please let me know if there was something I was doing, or wasn't, that had driven her to do this. She couldn't come up with a reason why and basically claimed temporary insanity. She also said it's never happened before or since. I do think she is telling the truth in this aspect, since I saw an email from him in February to her, saying that he hoped she was doing well. Along with our family, we had a special needs baby girl born in March, who has been hospitalized for 3 of the 4 months she's been alive. I also saw a Facebook message to her from him in August where he said he had been following our daughter's progress online via my wife's status updates, that he was praying for her, our daughter, that he always thinks about her, my wife, and that if there was anything he could do, to please let him know. Anyway, that's the gist of it. Since then, my wife has seemed committed to repairing the damage. She's open to talking about it and genuinely seems concerned. It's been less than a day though and I've found myself crying while my kids are napping. Although I'm not sure why. I want to talk it to death with her, but I'm afraid I'll alienate her if I keep bringing it up over and over and over again. I told her last night that once we were done with the conversation, I would not bring it up again, and instead, just concentrate on moving on and fixing things. I guess I'm not sure what the right thing to do is. I love her and I think she's sorry and loves me. I really do. Should I just shut up and see what happens from here? The only demands I've made of her is for her to remove him from her Facebook friends list, and to send him an email telling him not to call or write ever again. I just asked her that this afternoon. We met at the hospital for lunch before she went to work. She hasn't removed him yet, but it's very possible she's busy at work. I'll reiterate that tonight when she gets home if it hasn't been done by then. Also, I didn't know about the no contact letter when I talked to her. I have it pasted into MS Word and I will ask her to read it, copy it into an email to him and send it to him tonight. Any thoughts? I'm going a little crazy but I don't want to do or say something stupid. Just an update. I just got off the phone with my wife. She was asking me how I was doing. I was honest and told her I had been crying off and on but that I was doing okay and was trying to sort through everything. She asked if I still had questions and I asked that even if they didn't get physical, had they met in person since I told her I knew he lived nearby. She seemed irritated that I had been playing private detective. I clicked on the other guy's wife on Facebook and saw where they lived. She asked me to please stop torturing myself by snooping around and that if I had any questions, I could ask her. She told me again that it was just words and that there were no feelings behind them. Then she asked, "Do you feel like I've cheated on you?" And I said, "Yes, of course you cheated on me." Not yelling, but in a tone that let her know I felt very strongly about that. In all honesty, she seemed surprised that I felt that way. She did remove him from Facebook, confirmed, and I am going to go over the do not contact letter with her when she comes home tonight. All in all, she still seems sorry but she's getting defensive, which honestly, I understand. She told me that if I need to be mad or hurt or go through my feelings, that's fine and that we can talk about it anytime. Pretty much what I expected, but I hate the defensiveness because I do want to talk about things but I don't want to set up a hostile environment, warranted or not. I've already been through her chats that are still there. Is there a way to recover deleted ones? She did send a DNC email to him. She asked me if I wanted her to forward it to me. I had her go ahead and forward me so he knows with no doubt that I am aware of their activities. As far as marriage counseling goes, does anyone know if insurance covers it? We're pretty broke with me back in school for one more year. One thing I'm going to demand tonight is that she sets up an online account with our cell phone provider and that I have full access. Since I know where she is literally 99% of the time, any contact would be on her cell records. If the contact with him really did cease in February and there are no other suspicious calls since, I'll feel a lot better. Here's the thing. According to her and the emails I've seen, I have no solid reason to believe that she's been doing anything since February. One look at her cell records from then to now will 99% confirm or reject that since she and the phone have been surgically connected forever. If I see a pattern of calls to him or anyone else since then, that will let me know I'm not getting the truth from her. I know this isn't a 100% guarantee, but it's a huge one. Is it possible there's a hidden email account or something else? Sure, but my wife is not very tech savvy. I am, and I've been poring over browser histories as well for any other IDs in all emails, and haven't found anything. I may never know everything that happened for sure, but I'm reasonably confident that I'll be able to spot if it lasted longer than she said. Thank you. I really do appreciate everyone's advice, even if I'm too dumb to take all of it. I will think about marriage counseling. I'm leaning towards it right now. I'm still in shock, so my planning is kind of muddled right now. All I really need to know is if the calls have continued since February. If they have, I don't need to see more texts to know what was in them. If she's been in contact with him since then, I'll know it by looking at our old cell phone bills. She has been doing the bills. Yeah, red flag in retrospect. And if she lied about the calls, I'll assume she's lying about the rest. I'm hoping contact did stop back then, but I'll know soon enough. As far as how it started, it was apparently through Facebook. I do not have details on how it progressed. I do not know how it ended either. She insinuated that the contact just kind of died out. She'll be home in 15 to 20 minutes and I'll press her on that. She has been sending me sweet I love you texts throughout the day. They are to dream. But seriously, I know there's a lot of work to do. Days later, the last several days have actually gone tremendously well. My wife has freely given full access to all of her accounts, including email and Facebook, and helped me set up an online account with our wireless company. She's the primary, and told them to give me full access so I could go back through all of the calls and texts since this started. I have gone through those and found no contact since last February. She's been extremely patient in answering any questions I had about their relationship and activities. And while it doesn't make the hurt go away, she truly seems like a full partner in the recovery process. We'll see how things progress, but as for now, things are going much better than I expected. I'm crossing my fingers and knocking on wood, but I really think we're on the right path, and her response in the last few days has made all of the difference. She gets sad when she sees me start to get upset or my mood changes, which it will do out of the blue. She'll ask me what's on my mind until I tell her, hear me out, answer any questions, and then tell me how sorry see it that she hurt me so badly. I believe her when she says this, as she really does seem sad for me and remorseful about what she did. Comments: you may want to see the content of those texts. Actually, what if they proved there was a physical affair? Would that change anything for you? Because that would mean that she is lying to you still. Also, it could prove that it wasn't physical, just fantasy and texts. That would be worth it for you to know as well, and good for the trust she's rebuilding with you. You can get these texts from her phone backup folder on the computer she syncs to, or her SIM card, in many cases. Not all phones though. It does sound like she's acting in a very helpful way here. Glad to hear you're dating each other and being intimate and working on things. I really hope this was a one-time thing that didn't go physical. Just saying if it did and she's just not telling you because she thinks you don't have proof. Would you like to know? I know I did, and that proof is what has given me all of the leverage I have. What to do with that leverage is a tough call, but best to hold all the cards if you can. Talk with her, let her talk, show her you care, but try not to tell her too much about your pain or if you have a good cry, as she needs to know you're strong, in charge, and able to move on if she gives you any reason. Nothing wrong with crying, I've done plenty, but certainly don't tell my STBX about it. Far as she needs to know, I'm fine. Your W needs to know your boundaries and believe them. I waited too long to lay down boundaries. My W broke them the day after I laid them down, and I had to follow through on divorce to stand up for myself. But I respect myself more, and so does my W, even if we're rolling toward divorce. Dignity and respect for yourself first, your W's needs second. Think about that for a second. Sounds selfish, but it's not at all. OP responds: I'm not sure there's going to be anything else evidence-wise to check out. It seems the texts I was talking about were actually emails sent and received from her phone. It makes sense to me because all of them said sent from my ex wireless phone on them. I don't believe texts do that. and their emails showed up in every communication I saw. If that's the case, that should be everything, since if there were more emails, at least on this account, she would have deleted them all and would not have left any for me to find. Could I be missing something? Of course, but all of the evidence I have found leads me to believe I know pretty much everything that occurred, and I'll have to rely on her to fill in any blanks. Not perfect, but I have no reason to believe she's lied since D-Day. I'm guessing she may have minimized some of the details of their conversations to spare me, in her mind, but I think she's telling the truth about when they stopped contacting each other. It's weird. I want to trust her even though I question everything she tells me about what happened. It seems, though, that barring a major investigation into finding secret cell phones or email accounts, which I don't believe exist, I've always had access to her purse. I probably have all of the physical evidence I'm ever going to get. If I try to overthink it, I'll drive myself crazy. I still have mind movies and wonder about things, and I'm sure I will for a long time. But I really just want to accept the fact that on the face of things, she seems to be doing all that she can to reconcile. I'm thinking more and more about counseling, just because several people here have mentioned that they wish they had done it but hadn't because things seem to be going well. It all started shortly after we found out she was pregnant with our fourth daughter. Her impression of me when she told me the news was that I panicked rather than being happy. She is probably right. She said she was angry with me about that for a while, although not the reason she would seek attention elsewhere. This is her version of how events unfolded. She said he messaged her on Facebook and they started chatting at some point, and she says she doesn't remember when. This is the hardest thing for me when it comes to believing her. It turned physical or how. She says he started sending her pics of him and she reacted very inappropriately. She claims that they only talked a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 on the phone, from work. Which could be true. At night, she works in her own area and would be able to have a private conversation if she wanted to. She says that they never met and that they never had video chat. That last part also makes sense because if she went to her car, the lot is covered by very high-res cameras and her office would still be way too dangerous. Is it impossible that she did? No, but I guess I'm not going there unless I have reason to. She says he never had her cell phone hashed because she didn't want him to have her number, so there were no other calls or texts. Which lines up with what I said earlier. How did it end? She says it just stopped. She stopped emailing him and he didn't pursue, except for that time in Aug. He tried messaging her on Facebook again. She says she didn't reply, and since I could see his message with no response from her in her account's message history, I believe that's true. She says she felt bad, even at the time, and doesn't know why she did it. Like I said, the only thing I doubt is her memory of the details. If I had been doing that to her, especially over a short period, I think I would know every single detail. I think she's trying to protect me, even though all the details in the open would probably help in the long run. Although, I guess even if she did, there would still be that wondering feeling that there might be more. The worst part right now is doubting my wife when she's talking to me right to my face. I hate that more than almost anything, I think. Just a few minutes ago, she called to tell me her coworker, a girl, asked her to stay late. I immediately thought, oh no. I asked her how long, and it turned out she only needed another 15 minutes to run a test. 1 week ago, I wouldn't have blinked at it though. Today, I immediately jumped to conclusions I hate jumping to. Seriously though, I can tell it's going to be a long process to get over. Even though today has been a pretty good day overall, and yesterday was fantastic. I don't think there's been more than 10 minutes or so when I haven't at least thought about it for a second. A year later update. I think I can honestly say that after everything, I am as over this as I will ever be, and that our marriage has never been stronger. I can say that mostly because of how my wife has handled her responsibility in this. Since the day I confronted my wife about her EA, she has done everything she can to be open and honest and to give me complete access to absolutely anything I want. Like phone account password, Facebook account, email, etc. She constantly reassures me and lets me know how much she loves and appreciates me. I try to do the same and make sure that she has no reason to look elsewhere. I still check up on her from time to time, just every once in a while, but she has been clean and willing to prove it. I know my circumstances may not match everyone's or even most people's, but I just wanted people to know that just because your wife or husband strayed, especially if it was just limited to online activity, that there is still a chance to have a loving, meaningful marriage if your spouse is fully committed to breaking ties and repairing his or her credibility a day at a time. To those that are going through this now, I wish you the best. Story 2. My wife and I have been married for over 10 years. We have 4 wonderful kids ranging from 8 to 4. The kids are all happy, well-adjusted and well-liked and intelligent. They all succeed in school and other arenas. All indications are that we are succeeding in our primary jobs as parents, as I see it, to make successfully appropriate and kinds of young adults. First, let me start with this: I am imperfect. I know that. I won't pretend that I am. I want to make myself better and make my children better than I am, more kind, more successful. More generous, better marriages. I get lazy, make mistakes, no doubt about it. But I also bust my rear to make up for those mistakes. Point being, I acknowledge that I'm not the best at housekeeping, controlling my temper all the time, though I'm pretty good at it. I think, planning or scheduling. When we first got together, I was finishing up college, a taxing 5-year program that didn't leave much time for anything beyond schoolwork. I paid my way through school by working, so I ate like crap and was a little heavy. 190 pounds, 5 feet 10, nothing bad, just not what I wanted. After we were married, I got into running and did quite well. Ran a few marathons, really found something that let me blow off steam. When the kids came along, it obviously got difficult to fit that in. So I cut way back and made adjustments. Now I belong to 24-hour gym so I can run after everyone is asleep, sometimes finishing at 1 or 2 a.m. That is my choice and it only hurts my sleep. That being said, I get uptight now if I don't run for days at a time. I would think that I could somehow carve out an hour or two in every second or third day to run. Especially if I'm willing to do it at midnight. I know this is silly and not the biggest problem. I tell you this because I want to own that I have my own issues. I get it. My problems are with my wife, little surprise, I'm sure. I just don't feel that she's holding up her end of the bargain in quite a few ways. As this continues, I feel me becoming a worse person as well too. My anger and frustration toward her manifests itself not only toward her, but sometimes towards the kids as well. I do very well at remembering to avoid letting them feel the brunt of my frustration. But it would be a lie to say that it doesn't happen at all. No sense in kidding myself. She used to have a successful career, but after our second child, we realized that the money she made barely covered the cost of daycare for 2 children and we mutually decided that it was better for her to stay at home and raise our children the way we want. We thought, and still, both do, that this is for the best for our kids. The problems is from my perspective are 1. Cleaning, use of time. In exchange for her staying home full-time, I would continue to work full-time to support everyone. I would have stayed home and been a stay-at-home father. But we talked it through and we decided together that this was the road we would take. The theory was that she would take care of the house, cooking, laundry, and kids. I would work during the day, do the dishes and take care of the outside of the house. Simple division of labor. This has long since gone by the wayside. While neither of us were much for housekeeping, when we had kids, we agreed that this had to change. At this point, all of our kids are in school and our house is still a complete wreck. I'm not exaggerating when I say that people don't come in our house. When my wife is gone, she works during the holidays 1 night a week and maybe a weekend day at a retail store. And I have the kids. I make massive strides alone. I get entire rooms cleaned, get loads of laundry done. But when she's at home, it seems that she gets next to nothing done. I understand that she picks up the kids after school 2 days a week. She also teaches a fitness class for special needs kids which takes about 2 hours of her time at most. I feel that it's a reasonable question to ask. Wonder what she does with her time and important to the discussion. I'll admit to prejudice when answering this question. That being said, she goes to the grocery a lot, which seems to take extraordinary amounts of time when she does. The grocery is less than 3 miles away. A single trip can take 4 hours. She also has volunteered and is very active at the PTO for the kids' school and is a room mother for at least one of our kids every year. That also takes up a lot of time during certain parts of the year when they have fundraisers or other things. I get that. But it's the other times where I see a massive void of getting anything done. She is a voracious reader and if I had to guess, I'd suggest that she read between 50 to 75 books last year. When we got to bed at night, she sits with her e-reader and will sometimes read into the early morning because she can't put the book down. I'll come home from work and the kids are watching TV and she's sitting in the kitchen reading. If she asks to sleep in for an extra half hour on a Saturday and I roll with it, that half hour turns into 1 or sometimes more and she isn't sleeping at all. She's reading. Meanwhile, I'm managing the kids and trying to make up for time she didn't appear to use during the week. An honest example from this weekend. After our daughter had a recital on Saturday morning, she went with her sister to look for baby clothes. They were gone from 10 a.m. until after 5 that night. In that time, I did 7 loads of laundry, wash, dry, fold and put away all the dishes in the house and made the kids lunch. This is quite literally more than she did the entire week. And it's like this all the time. Every day, there is an excuse. On Saturday, she was too tired to do anything after shopping all day. Sunday, we were definitive busy all day. I agree with this one. Last night, she had a headache and couldn't work at all. I'm actually considering starting a log of excuse because I'm frankly incredulous. Our children's rooms are atrocious. Hangers all over the floor, clothes all over the place. You can't even walk through my older daughter's room and walk on the floor. You're walking on paper and clothes and any number of things. I've cleaned them all numbers and numbers of times, but only to have her come behind and let it get bad within a matter of weeks. Am I bitter? You bet. Do I bust my ass in an attempt to show her that it can be done? You bet. She complains that she feels like I stand in judgment of her all the time, and she's right. But I don't see how a person couldn't stand in judgment of someone when they constantly fail you. How else should that work? Okay, on with other issues beyond cleaning. 2. She is a screamer. Her mother, who has passed away, was as well, to the point of abuse. No doubt, this is an environmentally inherited trait. This is also one that I'm not interested in passing on to our children. I want our children to be better people, better spouses, better in general than we are. But my wife loses it, sometimes over the smallest things. My oldest daughter and now the second are both turning into screamers, and it breaks my heart, both to see my kids weather the battery of constant screaming and to see them turning into ones themselves. 3. Manipulation. I watched my MIL manipulate her children when I first met them. It was devious and horrid, and now I fear that my wife doing the same to us. Sometimes it's benign, other times it's not. My memory isn't as sharp as I'd like, so a lot of times she'll rely on that to make her case on an issue, assuming that I won't remember. An example, we were having a discussion over something where she asked me a question which I answered completely and thought that the discussion was over and turned to my daughter to talk about a song that came on the radio. My wife blew up over this. I asked what was wrong and she said that I had interrupted her to move on to something else. In a rare instance of clarity, I told her exactly what her question had been, exactly what my response had been, and then asked how precisely I had interrupted her. Her response, "Your definition of interrupt is different than mine." Had I not asked the question, she would have gone on a rampage about how I had interrupted her, knowing damn well that she was just crafting reality to her own best devices. 4. Tearing down of her duties, increase in mine. Remember when I said that the breakdown of duties was that she cooked and did laundry and I did the dishes? That's totally gone now. Every night that she's cooking, she needs help somehow. That's okay, but if I'm helping out in her arenas, shouldn't she help out in mine? That seems fair. But I do 95% of the dishes. No, not an exaggeration, and we don't have a dishwasher. And constantly have to pick up behind her after she cooks. Spices, milk, various ingredients are all mine in addition to doing the dishes afterward. This is after I put the kids to bed. She doesn't like to brush their teeth because I do a better job. This usually means that while I'm putting them in pajamas, she is downstairs, usually cycling through channels to see what she is going to watch. When the kids are finally in bed, she'll rush upstairs to give them a quick kiss on a commercial before zipping back downstairs before the commercial break is over. I'm left to put them into bed, make sure they stay there, get them water, retuck them, and after they go to the bathroom, and then, when they're done, go back downstairs and do dishes while she watches television or reads. I'm probably doing half the laundry now, not just mine. I'm cleaning 90% of the house. To be perfectly honest, I have a hard time figuring out what she does during the day. I know from experience in business that things always take longer than you would think, looking at it from the outside. That being said, zero progress from month to month, year to year isn't getting anything solved. I'm carrying more of the load all the time, and I fear that eventually I'll be carrying all of it. 5. Lack of appreciation, respect for what I do. When I say this, I mean that there is a general level of disrespect. If I get the living room clean, she will walk through and drop her coats on the couch 3 days in a row until I hang them up myself. It's like she can assume that I'll get tired of it and take care of it. So why bother? She could easily take 10 minutes and do some dishes during the day. But that almost never happens, ever. But those 10 minutes at least buys me that same amount that evening to do something else. She leaves her bathrobe soaking wet on our bed and, instead of walking the 10 to 15 step to hang it up, we'll pile it at the foot of our bed. This is an example, not the sole issue. There are many similar issues where she just doesn't do anything and assumes that it will get done, either by me or sometime in the nebulous future, when there is always a reason not to. I'll clean her car and, within a week, it's so bad that you can't sit in the passenger seat without having your feet in a sea of juice boxes and trash. She knows that I'll eventually clean that up. 6. I don't even know how to describe this, but it seems like if she's doing something, she wants me to drop everything and do it. I was talking with my daughter the other day about school, and she called me down to help her make dinner. She needed a fork from the drawer and afterward needed nothing else, but still wanted me to stay in case she needed me. This is common. 7. With regards to cleaning, when she decides that she wants to, it has to be on her own terms, room by room. This means that she first wants to deal with the living room, which people would see first if they came over. So, she wants to deep clean and purge. I agreed 4 months ago to do it her way, and we still aren't there. How can it take 4 months to clean a single room? If while she is gone, I clean the kids' rooms, she gets mad because I'm not cleaning her way, working on that singular room. She says it deflates and demotivates her to have me take a different route. There is more, but these would seem to be the bulk of it. If we dealt with these issues, we'd have most of it licked. So I will stop here with my recitation of grievances. How does this affect me? I'm bitter. I'm constantly stressed. There is never enough time, and I'm fighting an endless battle against forces that are supposed to be my ally, but in reality, I feel like is at best neutral in the fight and more likely than not working against me. Every time I walk home into a messy house, it's like someone punches me in the stomach. So, I try to fight back the tide of mess again that night, just hoping to go to bed with the house somewhat better that night than it was the night before. I feel like if I can chip away, maybe eventually, slowly, I will get there. I have waning motivation. Why work towards something if you're never guaranteed to get there? No matter how hard you try. Our room is an embarrassing wreck, so romance is stifled to say the least. Would you want to have amorous relations with the lights on if there were clothes piled all over every available surface and the floor was littered with papers and books? Maybe I'm being petty. I'm actually at the point where I'm starting to wonder if the issue is me. But then I pull back and try to look at it objectively, and I can't see that this is my issue. Generally speaking, how does this affect my kids? I'm worried that they will grow up to live in completely dirty conditions, as screamers and manipulators. They live in an environment that is dirty and embarrassing. What is shocking to others has become normal to them, and that doesn't bode well for the future. How can you expect a child to grow up right if you can't provide them with the proper role modeling? I'll reiterate, I'm not perfect. I know it. I do judge her a lot. But I feel like that's an excuse to deflect the fact that she's failing a lot. If a person fails constantly, doesn't logic dictate they subject themselves to judgment by doing so? I can always do better, and, despite my misgivings, I try every day. I don't feel like I can say the same for her. As far as the screaming, what exactly have you tried? Initially, I would approach her during the episode and say that it was out of hand. Then she asked that I not undermine her in front of the kids and instead bring it up afterwards privately. I honored their request, but it didn't seem to encourage cessation at all. Now, I generally will calmly interrupt to say her name or dear, hoping that she will hear and stop in the moment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. She has said that sometimes she hears herself and knows that she's out of control but can't stop. I'm not sure I buy that, but at least she's admitting there is an issue. I have never had to deal with a screamer. But my thought is that, when she screams at you, you calmly tell her you will not speak to her until she calms down, then walk away. Same with when the kids scream at you. When she screams at the kids in front of you, teach them to do the same thing to her. If they're old enough. Interesting. I would guess that it would drive her over the edge, especially with the kids. I'll have to think on this because I like the idea because you don't engage in the conflict. Family therapy might be in order as well. It may be. But again, as a single-income family, that's tough if not impossible. A month later, one of the issues with my wife is that I don't feel that she's pulling her fair share of duties around the house. Our house is a wreck to the point that our 3 kids have never had a play date over at our house because it's too much of a wreck. I will occasionally make headway, but she never bothers keeping up with the progress I make. It's like trying to hold back a forest fire with an eyedropper. Anyway, the point of this post is this. I've been looking for an email sent to our shared email address since last Thursday. I don't use it often, but it is both our complete names and we both use it. So, it's shared. When I first went in last Thursday, I saw that she had purchased a couple books for her reader that day. She is a voracious reader, and I've suspected that a lot of the reason that little gets done is because she's reading when I'm at work and the kids are away at school. Of course, that's tough to prove. I went back yesterday and discovered that she had bought 2 more books. That means that in 6 days, she's read 2 books. On average, they're between 350 to 400 pages each. Break that out. That's about 350 to 400 pages every 3 days. If you read 60 pages an hour, that's about 2 hours of reading a day. That got me thinking, wondering if I could document how much she'd read. So, I did a quick email search and found that she had bought 20 books from since January 8th. 2 issues. 1. I feel guilty for snooping, but it confirmed my suspicions. So, it's hard to feel all that guilty. 2. If each book takes 5 hours to read, being generous, it's probably more. That is one hell of a lot of time out the window. That 100 hours at least tossed out the window in about a month and a half. If I had 100 hours to kick around, our house would be freaking spotless. So yes, I'm pissed. Now, trying to take her perspective, there are times where she's waiting on the kids. She likes to take them to soccer practice, where she takes her reader. But during that time, I have the 1 or 2 kids who don't have practice, and I'm usually either cleaning or doing homework with them. She reads at night a lot, even past when I go to sleep, so I'm not sure how much. But even at that, she wakes up exhausted in the morning, claiming insomnia. Pretty sure that it's book-borne insomnia. So, to put it in a tight little package, I am hot. Where I'm at now is that I'm going to monitor the email address more closely, print out the receipts and present them to her after 3 months, 6 months. However long I can hold out to make the case stronger. Strangely, this has actually made me calmer at home. I'm usually on edge when I get home and nothing's been done because I'm wondering exactly she's been doing. Now that I know, it's almost a relief. I'm working with the kids on improving their rooms and taking responsibility for keeping up with what progress we make. It does seem like they are taking ownership more. Also working with kids on not screaming. In short, I'm dealing with them the way it was recommended that I deal with spouses screaming. The screamed at party walks away, reinforcing that they get no result from screaming. Then I talk with the screamer about how it feels to be on the flip side, etc. This has helped from the kid's side. The spouse, not so much. MC, just not an option for us now. If it were, frankly, I'd be there spilling my guts right now. Cleaning service, if I had the ability to work on the house unencumbered for 2 weeks, I could get it to the place where a cleaning service would make sense. Someday, yes, today, they'd laugh and leave. I've made a goal of making appreciable progress in one area every night before I go to sleep. Last night, I cleaned the bathroom and organized the linen closet. The night before, the kitchen was made whole. I tried to get a bin for them all to put their dirty clothes in, but that was rejected and she returned them. She's going to keep up with laundry, she says. Now that you know what she's doing all day, why bother to confront her? What are you going to tell her? What are you hoping she will do? I'm hoping that when confronted with empirical evidence that she's burning time, she will choose to be an adult and own up to it. For now, she's just said that I don't see what she's doing because I'm not at home. If someone showed me that I was wasting 2 to 3 hours a day, I'd like to think I would deal with it. We have 4 kids ranging from 8 to 4. I agree in theory that they should be able to clean up after themselves. They do have chores that they are held to weekly, but to be perfectly blunt, my wife makes it impossible for me to keep up the house, much less the kids. I'm overwhelmed, so I don't see how I can expect them to hold the line. I play with the kids as much as I can and take active roles with them, from practicing sports they enjoy to reading, etc. I take a very active role in their daily lives as much as possible. What do the wife and I do together that is positive? Our most positive interaction is a mutual enjoyment of our children. We share daily in their scholastic and athletic achievements. We have several dates each week where we sit down together, watch 1 or 2 TV shows that we both enjoy and discuss our days before, during, commercials, and after. When we can, we try to squeeze in dates, but this is tough since the house is such a wreck that we can't bring a babysitter in. This forces us to take them to a service, which is drastically more expensive than a babysitter. I would agree that 2 to 3 hours a day shouldn't interfere with keeping a normally clean house. Again, I don't know what she is doing while I'm gone, but I know it isn't cleaning. There just isn't any progress from day to day unless I make it. I'll put it this way, if she maintained the house, she could read all she wanted. But if nothing gets done, that's 10 to 15 hours a week that could make a huge dent. I've had the kids by myself on many setters where she went to my in-laws or elsewhere and I can make miracles happen in 12 hours. A year later update. 2 weeks later, she jumped right back in. Since January 1st, she's ordered 36 books for her Nook. 300 pages a book, round numbers, that's 10,800 pages read. Works out to 180 pages a day. If she reads a page a minute, that's 3 hours a day that she isn't contributing to our house. Our kids have never had a sleepover and they never will at this rate. My comment, just wanted to include a general relationship story in the second one. Some of these stories are too heavy these days. Wanted to provide something a tad lighter today. I'm going to go out for a jog today, and I will be back preparing tomorrow's stories for you guys.